I would like to thank you all for attending today's class. Today's class is Lettering for Everyone, I think it's called. And what I do is, through this class, is kind of cover everything from the basic lettering to a little more advanced technique on lettering. Not quite of creating your own lettering, but be able to do other things as reshaping and more, and tell you a little about the lettering and some of the new features of breaking apart letterings and that. So before I get started, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Greg Quishin. I am an authorized trainer and distributor for North United States of America. So United States of America otherwise. I do run a website called advancedwillcom.com, where there's advanced training sales. There's tons of free training, and there's additional advanced training of how to maybe do special techniques. You're welcome to browse my website, give me feedback of how I can improve myself on my sales and training techniques. And I do run an embroidery shop. I've been doing embroidery for over 20 plus years. My business is based out of Lansing, Michigan. Unique Embroidery Printing. You can contact me, area code 517-321-UNIQUE. That's area code 517-321-8647. Or email me at uniqueemb.com. I prefer this message if you're across seas, if you're not in the United States or across the border. Definitely email me as I do not make any calls outside the United States on there, because I am at a facility that does not have free long distance calling outside of the U.S. on there. I apologize that we have bowling, golf, and banquets and more through here. So I am part of Royal Scott, which you can see Royal Scott's Unique Embroidery and Printing up on the right corner. Okay, so this is my old banner, but I am a distributor, authorized trainer, so if you need to get any information about updating or so forth, please contact me. Let's get this class started. I introduced myself enough. It's been about, 2 minutes or more since I did that, or 5 or whatever, I don't know. Okay, so let's get through this. Okay, I apologize that. Okay, I already had a question. Can you do A, B, H, and K? I don't know what you mean by doing an A, B, H, and K for what? So can you give me a little more detail? First thing is, when we get into embroidery, I'm working with Embroidery Studio. There is a Deco Studio and more. They may not have all the enhancement of Embroidery Studio, but you will see when you first say something new on your screen, you may have something that pops up, or menu I have it turned off, but we have a new clear screen through here. You got a letter A here. If you hover over your mouse, you will see lettering and then slash settings. So that what that means is like a left click and a right click. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on there. It brings my lettering property. I'm going to tack that down. Now, if I would just on left click, that means I can start typing in my area and say GREG for the heck of it, and press enter, and it'll generate the stitches. So that's how you generate your stitches. Of course, my default when I left click was with the block. So when you left click, whatever last alphabet you have, and click on the screen, it will gray out your work area, and it's whatever this default is. If I need to change that, I could go through there and change that through there and type in what I need to do. But I recommend right click, get the white area, and just type in your name through there, KWIECIEN. Whoops, and that is. And then you could actually go through here. Now you can insert symbols and more. So let's say you want some European fonts. Some of your alphabets do have European fonts. So if you need that little squiggly or little symbol above the characters, you can do that. I find that in some wording and names quite often on there that I may have to do that. You also do have some like trademarks. So if you didn't need that little TM or that copyrighted symbol, they do have those built in on those where you could actually grab that. So I could add my name is a trademark, and I could go okay and take off my register mark and put it in there and put that on there. So I have that in there and so forth. Before I do all this, I always could take a look and click on the preview. Now there's a preview, and this would show me how I have my lettering. So if I want to see how my name looks, I could do that by having the preview clicked on that, okay? So once again, if I type in a sample, I got that sample on there. Now, right below there, you got true type conversion and use save version. So what that means is the true type version, if you go through your list, you will see the little stitch zigzag. Those are your embroidery alphabet. If you go down farther, you will start seeing the TT. That means true type. This is the best way to use your font as converting. Instead of going from the graphic mode and converting over, you have a little more control this way. So what I mean by that, once I say college, I could go through the college, whoops, not college font. I meant to go college true block or so. I thought I did that. Let's see, we'll do the Cosmic Sands. You will see it says, hey, we got a true type conversion. And this is in the Embroidery Studio. I don't think Deco Studio has this, but you can go through this and say, hey, is this a regular true Cosmic Sands? Is it bold, italic, or bold with italic? Are we going to match the ends? Are there serifs? It doesn't look like it, so... And then how it takes the corners and how it creates the overlaps in the T's or the crosses and the O's of the joints on there. So we could say we could do that. Or we could suggest what that is. Now, there was not that much of a change, but a 75 on the breaking angle on there. It did that. Or if you're doing big Farsi letters, you may want to do a complex fill and change that stitch angle maybe to a 45, 60 is usually the default, or something else. And you may want to put borders around it as big Farsi letters, which I tend to see, and make it into a tatami stitch. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to take that and take the suggested value, and now I'm going to type in sample and create my lettering. Now that created the sample lettering and enlarged it, and you could go through here, box in this area. Now there's certain areas that probably didn't quite take the way I wanted on there. You know, I don't really like this particular end part, but otherwise, if I'm looking through here, that basically almost digitized everything but maybe a few minor areas. I could take the true view off and edit my lettering through here. So if I don't like certain things, we have these nodes, just like digitizing. Now, if you have basic lettering, you will not be able to reshape these, as I recall. You got to have the editing part of the version of software, so the ES editing. So lettering, you only can basically use your basic lettering and kind of default that. I may be wrong, but I would have to double check on that. But I know you cannot break apart lettering. But let's say you have certain parts that you don't like about this font, how it did that. So you could actually go through and start adjusting these nodes through here. And whoops, I got the wrong one there. I want to bring this down and bring this over. And I keep grabbing the top part. And I may want to bring this kind of like if it came up and around through this, I may want to do that so it's not as noticeable and it's a lot smoother. So I may do that and turn my true view on, say, hey, that's going to take the turn a lot better through here, and I may want to do that with my end part. So I take the true view off and click on that, and then I see, oh, that's two different sections. So this is where you could start breaking apart lettering on there, or if you want to keep it as lettering, you can do that and try to fix these angles through here and maybe make it more pronounced, make it look like more of a lettering is grown through there. I'm going to do a quick true view, and that kind of looks like it takes the turn better. Now, I'm not being, don't want to spend too much time on this. You make the judgment call of how you want that lettering look. But now I got that, and I can go back on the letter A and say, hey, you know, there goes another point that I'll probably pucker out to there. So that is how you use your true type fonts. But as this is a Cosmic Sans in that, we had that font as embroidery. So the first thing you want to do is type in your sample once again and use what you have as the stitch files. So let's go back up to where the little stitch files of the embroidery and see that Cosmic Sans. I think it was in the C's, so I'm going to press C. Whoops, and scroll through here. Now I have some fonts that you may not have, but I could Cosmic right there. So it doesn't say the same. And then I could go ahead and click on the screen and blow that up. And you can see how it took it a lot better. You know, the turn of the A, it didn't separate. It made the M a lot better. So try to use your embroidery font over the true type fonts. There might be a couple little different lettering that you might have to do adjustments to get it to look like your customer's logo. But that's very easy to do. So for example, you might have a customer that has all uppercase as sample and or team name mascot, and you have that, but it's different effects. But what I mean by that, you could take your lettering, and I'm going to go ahead and make that red, okay, so we can see that. You could adjust your lettering by moving your lettering back and forth. You could actually scale your lettering by those little handles when you click on your reshape, which is the H key, and get that on there. So if you need to have that, if you want those exact same size, you could actually drag, left click and drag, put a box there and say, hey, I need exactly a 75 on there, and make sure this one, drag across and say that's supposed to be a 75 also. So now I have that exactly same thing through here and through here. That looks pretty good, close. The E must be a little taller than the S for some reason, but I have that. And then I could, you know, of course, once I grabbed it, the height that has variable in there, it's going to be blank, but I could go through there and say maybe the baseline, now I quite haven't gotten into there, the baseline fell to the middle, which I covered a little about this. So your letter sits on a baseline. So as you see, when I have this type, your lettering is sitting in your when you left click, you could slide across that baseline. But if I change that baseline to be in the middle or the top, then the letters will follow that baseline from that area. So you could scale it up and down and get that effect. And you might also add on some other traditional areas where we have bridging or enveloping, is known as when you take the lettering, now you got your envelope, and maybe you may have to make that part a little curved and so forth. You can hold your control key, control both of them. Shift key will go the opposite direction. And then, of course, you know, you could go back and say delete the last one, or you could combine them. So you might do maybe a little bridging of here, and then you may want to do a pennant or perspective and kind of like bring out these corners and kind of like make it going away and more. So those are all different things you could do with the lettering. Also, you can reshape lettering. So let's get back to this lettering over here. We could actually go through and reshape the lettering. And let's pick a different, we'll go back to this lettering here, and we're just going to get back and delete that to its original. So we have this in envelopes. Okay, this is all deleted. So this is now my lettering. And let's say we had to scale this down, and you start seeing that letter A gets too small. Now, one thing I usually do is try to make all my letterings all the same first. So I'm going to go ahead and put this at height 0.5, so they're all the same. So you have this at, you scale this lettering, and you find you're closing up the lettering. So I'm going to go ahead and box this area up. And now I got my lettering here. I'm going to take off my true view. Now we do need to support the lettering, and I will get into the underlay and some more, but I'm going to turn that off so we can see what's going on here better. I have this lettering, and it is created with wireframes, and I could actually adjust these. As I said, when you click on the reshape, click the diamond, you could take it, scale it up, you could distort it taller, you could make it wider, you could actually rotate it or italicize it. Forgot about that one. That's italicize. It rotates the R down here like a register mark, and you can rotate it and more. You could also, as I said, move it back and forth, hold your shift key, take it off the baseline vertically, or if you hold your control key, you could actually move it freely from the baseline. So if you need to get something and you have these letters that are crossing in and out, like two letters, you could do that. But to get more involving on there, I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, I need to take this letter A, and when I scale it down, it's closing up. So what I want to do is I can hold my shift control key and do individuals. I like to take my shift key and left click or right click will go the opposite direction. Left click will go clock, depending where you're starting from, clockwise or counterclockwise. And then I like to bring it down and maybe bring this cross. Whoops, we'll take these two and bring it over. Now I got a little more opening from the traditional A. I could go through this A, select this letter A. This A is actually an object, and I may want to create a user-defined alphabet. And I could say, save this anytime when it's less than 0.2 or some kind of an inch under. I'm going to say 2 or 5 millimeters or whatever you may. Now you can see I got a used version already as user 2. That means I already have one already made it. So I'm going to say cancel on that. And then I could also go under my settings and manage my user refine on there and see I have that already taken effect when the lettering is at 0.26. I have a define saved, and then I have the factory that will take effect on my letter A. And of course you could drop down your lettering and see what other alphabets you might have done. So there's my letter A at 0.26. So what happens is when I have this lettering and I go back to my object properties, lettering, I have this use save version on there. So let's get back to my regular normal setting of 0.25. Okay, my lettering is 0.25 and I said 0.26. Well, there doesn't look like that. Maybe I did not say that. I thought I said that. Let's try that again. Okay, I think it's because I reshaped that letter myself. Let's start over. I just realized that I did shape that. So SAMPEL. I had that. Take my underlay off and bring that down through this lettering, object properties. And I apologize for this. 0.2, but see that? I got something said don't use it. Look at that letter A. So I'm going to actually just, so we don't have any other distraction, update my letter A. That A is that small. And I'm wanting to make that red so you can see that. It's closing up. But I want to sew that letter A at my 5 millimeters or 0.2 of an inch. So I have what they call a use the saved version. Now I open it up. Whether you saw that or not, I reshaped it and I got a saved version. So whenever you're having trouble lettering, you can always go into your letter A, reshape it, or maybe it's a different letter, is the E or some other letter that might be a little tricky, and closing up on there, you know, it could be any letter you want. Your letter R is another famous one. We'll go ahead and OK that. And maybe the letter R might close up and you need to take that letter and say, hey, I want to open this up. So what I'm going to do is box this area up, bring it maybe a little bigger and maybe a little taller on there. Kind of opening this letter R up. I'm distorting a little more than I wanted, but you get the idea. So we have that R, and now we could say, hey, I want to take that R, take this and say, object, create a user define for the letter R only when it's less than 0.22. Whoops. 22. Less than that, user 1. Say that. That means now if I type in AR and make that at 20 and say save, you can see both of them change. Okay. So also you might have some tricky letters that you might have, say ATA, and you have that, and you got a kerning table. Now I'm going to jump down to the kerning table. Your lettering tends to be too spaced out. So when you say an ATA or authorized or whatever you want to call it, and I'm typing in B, C, D, E, F, A again, you can see how these letters are almost apart, but that A is way far from the F. And you may want to adjust that. Whenever a first letter is F and an A, you can grab it, move it. It's next to an F, and you want about the kerning to be that. You could grab the A and F. So, whoops, I meant to take off my true view. Take the A and F, make sure, or hold the control key. Grab those two. Those are objects, and update your kerning value. And this will affect it. So that means when I have my kerning table on, now I should probably retype this on there because it's already moved by hand. So sometimes it gets a little tricky. And when I say that on there, let's go back to ATAFA. Okay, there's when it's used the kerning table. That's how it will be not using your kerning table if you don't have it on and off. So now you could do that, and you would have to do that if the A is in front of a T and so forth. So I had to do that with the TA, and then I did it with the AT combination. Once again, you need to grab both letters combination when an A is in front of the T or F in front of the A or vice versa. However, go and update your kerning table. So those are your kerning table. Now you could go through and try to copy or delete. If you really messed up one of your tables, you can zero those tables out, so forth. But you can do that. So let's get back to as we're going. So we have the lettering height there, and then we got the width. The width is all you're doing is stretching the lettering out. As you see, this is stretching it. That width has changed it. You got the italicize, you know, so if I say 10, I could slant it. Or if you do it graphically, this will gray out. You could actually grab that and rotate it that way. And or actually it didn't even change it because I typed in a value in there. So make sure you understand which way you're doing that because it makes a difference, because sometimes these value will gray out or won't be exactly what you have. So if I go back, it may really messed up things and got a little confused. Say, hey, you did me graphically and then you did me by hand. I'm a little confused. Which way do you want me to do? So that's why I say, usually try to keep it one way or another. As I said, the baseline and then the settings, whether you're doing left or right justify. Of course, the orientation of the baseline. So what that means is if you take that baseline and you bring this baseline up and down, the lettering is falling on the baseline, always falling flat on the baseline. So if you want to keep that design 90 degrees, you can actually have that area. So if you need to go slide, like the letter sliding down a slide or something like that, you could do that by having that. That's very similar when you change how you follow your lines, if it's a fixed line or vertical line on that. It does make a difference how we do that. So I'm going to go ahead and go back and take that originally and get to the different baselines. So we had the fixed line. That means it fixed all the way a fixed line. So if I want this line to be 5 inches wide, that line, baseline, is 5 inches wide. Even though I have it centered, I could go left of that line, right of the line, center of the line, and full width of the line. So those are all different ways you could do it on that. So I'm going to take a little break and see what kind of questions I have up there, because I have here, how do you digitize it without stops or overlaps? Okay, I would kind of clarify how you digitize with stops without overlaps. I don't know what you mean by overlaps without stops. I'm guessing the stops are your trims, those little triangles. I got a little function, show connectors, and then little triangles and circles. See those are trims. Those are your connectors on the inside. I will be getting to that a little later if that's what you're talking about, but I don't know what you mean by overlaps. So please explain that. And then what are the best practices of getting small types appearance clearly? I think I kind of went through there and reshaping the letters on there and picking your font on there. Now, I haven't went through and selected the type of fonts or anything, but you can reshape them. But always, if you have a font, try to use your small fonts on there. So what I mean by that, you have a section in here that's like small and SM. The SM are ones I created, hand digitized. I explained that yesterday in my class and sold them to Wilcon. So small script, towers, and Forte, I created those. They work great for small lettering. I digitize them so they don't have to have as much PO compensation. They're not narrow compared to your block 1 and 2s. 2 is a little bolder. What that does, it allows you to have more PO compensation. So as you can see, the A and that T is very big difference, allowing PO compensation. And I don't think I have a letter S or a round letter. I probably should have a I and an O next to each other to give you a sample. So what I mean by that is when you pick these small letters, it allows this push and pull compensation through there. So you can see how short the I is going to grow. The O is going to pull in because the stitches pull in. This is going to get narrow but taller. Now if I have that exact same font, pull it over here and say my block 2, so let's go back to the top and find my block 2. Let's see, block 2, you can see a little different. The I is a little taller on there, allowing it not to have too much pull on there. And as you can see, the letters might not be as bold on there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that letter and put it right on top of there. As you can see right there, True View, that you got a little more difference on the letter I on there because you could actually see that I on the regular block is not as wide as your smaller font. So there's another reason. So not only this I is taller, is made for taller letters. So the best thing to do is go to your help. Go to your online manual. So let's see, user manual right there. You got your user manual, and go down to, let's see if we got the alphabets through here. Embroidery alphabets right there. It shows you what's recommended minimum and maximum in the inches and metrics. So it makes it there. And it also shows you the type of connection. Automatic digitized, closest joint, or as digitized. AD is as digitized, closest joint, and so forth. That's what they recommend. And I kind of cover that, and I'll try to see if I can cover that again later on today if I have enough time. But there's your O and I. I meant to grab both of them on the different types of fonts. So hopefully that explains the difference on there. So I'm going to answer 2 more questions, and I'm going to get back to the class. Okay, so here's another one. How would you make one portion of the letter bolder than another? I'll show you when we get breaking part lettering, okay? Or use a different lettering, because you can use different part of lettering. So one way is I got these 2 letters here. As you see, when I was able to change the letter height, I'm able to change the letter block as a different font. And of course I got that as a fixed line in that, which probably pretty bad. I should have done that. So I'm going to delete that one, get back to this one, and there's my full width. So let's get my baseline to be free line base. As I said, you can highlight the letter. You can also change the type of letter. So you have different lettering. That's one way. Or you can manually adjust it to make one bolder or another. Or I'll show you maybe a little trick later on. You could also, when you do that way, you can actually take that letter when you have it selected. And we'll take that and change it to maybe a blue. Now I got blue letter. Another way to do that is if I say A, B, C, D, E, we'll just do that. We have that all colors, and you want to go from your first color, I'm going from the first color, yellow, blue, red, black, and so forth. You could put what they call a character stick, so shift 6 between each letter. So I'm just going through there and slap the little character stick, I call them, or whatever, shift 6 and say update. Now it goes yellow, blue, red, black, white. So there's different things, and of course from your color object list, I'm going to untag this, so you can see they are tied in with these little dotted lines showing that it's first color, second color, third. They're all dotted, connected in there. I don't know if you can see that, but there's little dots going to this one box on here, as you see when I'm grabbing each one of these. Okay, so hopefully that answers partially your question on there. And what's the smallest size you can do for me or for you? That's the big question. And what font? For instance, the TM at 0.110. Are you talking about the trademark, or are you talking about just the TM combination? You got to look at your fonts on there, and whether you use 40 weight or 60 weight thread. Of course, the trademark, myself, if I really wanted to do a trademark on there, I would do a manual digitize and take my run stitch or manual stitch and say, hey, I want to put a T mark here, and then I could put I hold my control key and put a little trademark and, go through there, and then I could repeat back, or I could repunch it. So there's a trick of, you could go repeat back, and then maybe grab that and actually make that yellow. As you can see, that's 0.13. I have done it smaller. Okay, that's 0.111 height on there. That's going to sew just perfectly and readable still. depending on your fabric, of course. So if you're not going to see the trademark on a fleece that small, but you can manually digitize and add that. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's get back to class. Okay. So I see, hands up. So please type in your questionnaire box instead of putting your hands up on there. So hopefully we got that. Okay. Now getting back to, let's make that all blue so we can see that. Get rid of my trademark. And let's grab all these other letterings, get out of there. And I got some guidelines. I ain't worry about that. We're just going to make that to my center page work area and press 1 on my keyboard. Zoom in. And then we're going to go through, let's see, we were under their special lettering. So we had the baseline through there. We had the arc. Now the arc, of course, is going to create an arc on there. You could define your arc from scratch. So if I want to type in through here and right click and say, let's go this way and select that. Right click, tack that back down and say GREGK, my name, and I want to create that arc. I usually recommend if you're trying to follow a path or back of a hat or something like that, you might have a certain setting or you might have a circle already there. You could go create the lettering as left click, pull to the right on there and go upwards, and then you could define your arc through there. Another way to do that is, let's say you had some kind of a ring on there or a fill pattern. I'm just going to create some kind of oval. Let's say you had a weird shape on there and you're trying to follow that arc on there. Yeah, you don't quite got that. You're trying to reshape it and you can do that. And I got that pretty well close on there, but you can see the gap off. I can move it. You can actually change that into a free line also. Some people really like to use a free line over the arc. It's a matter of preference. So you got this any shape through here. So you type in Greg, GREGKWIECIEN, and they may go through here and they may follow baseline or have their cursor a certain way, and then they will eyeball it, or they will make a straight line and then they'll add nodes. So now you have that and say, hey, okay, being perfectionist here and say, hey, this is okay, but this area is a little off. I want to follow right on that line. So there's another way you could do that. And this, like I said, this is any shape. It follows that. You can move your lettering and so forth, and also make that full width of the line, left justify, right justify, and more. So you got any shape, a fixed line. Then you got the curve, you got the arc. That means what it does is really, it's a curve, but the baseline's on top. Look at that. It changed the baseline to the top. I can put it to the inside. It's going to probably squeeze it. But arc for the inside usually change these settings. So it's like automatic changing these information for you. So you only have one click, kind of like a macro in CorelDRAW. So then you have this circle, which is complete circle, free line, and vertical line, which I was going to tell you that vertical line through there is keeping the baseline through there on the baseline or so forth. You can change these. You could do just about anything you want. Back to, changing that. Actually, that doesn't really do much when you have it selected, but you can get the same effect on there, because what if your baseline is crooked? And I got that as fixed width, don't I? Yeah, fixed baseline, vertical free. So let's say you had that crooked. Well, I want to keep that going through left to right on there. And the other way I thought was a little easier to go that way and then try to keep it 90 degrees on there. But it's falling through the middle of the baseline, as you see through the middle when it's on vertical. So that kind of gives you an idea where my last setting was actually to the baseline, to the left of the baseline. So these are all different ways you could go through here on there, and as I said, it usually follows with that. So you can get to your way you need to do it in different ways on there, okay? So now we got that settings through there. We talked a little about the settings and that. And then if you do have a fixed line, there is usually extra settings through here, which means you might have a fixed line at 5 inches. You have your lettering at 3.2. We'll even bring that up to 5 millimeters. That's a fixed line. What happens when you're using team names and more? Now, team names and more, I will try to get into that, but I wanted to get to the underlay, unless you guys feel it's more important to get to the team names and talk about underlays. All I'm going to recommend is a bold font for lettering. Let's get that real quick on there. All lettering should have some underlay, unless you're sewing on something miracle or something not so stable that you don't need underlay, that won't stretch or sink or move. That could be your nice hefty twill, Carhartt jackets. You know, you don't need all that, you know, just very coarse thread. But sometimes you may want to use a little extra spacing, stitching, or a little border to help raise those letters so it's not hitting those coarse. But underlay, just give you an idea on underlay real quick through your underlay tab. If you have a very narrow, small font, I usually recommend go with the center run. If it's a bolder font with, I'm going to go ahead and put my pole compensation and say, hey, this bold font is, say, 0.5. Okay, I made a little bolder font. And then I may want to use a little bolder font. I may want to use what they call it, edge run. So I'm going to turn that off and actually turn off the second one. So now we got this edge run through here. By the shape is going to follow the whole shape. So I'm going to put take off my lines in there. That was this line right here. That's what makes the shape. So you can see there, go back to there. It creates little underlay through the little sections, through the little branches. So the E's and I's, you can see underlay goes to there. By shape, it goes around the whole letter, travels around. So it like does an outline trace or contour from the inside. Center run, as I said, just does a center run for narrow fonts. And then there's zigzag, maybe a little texture material, or you want to give a lift. Or you may want to go bigger lettering and say edge run and a zigzag. So it creates an edge run and zigzag. And then, of course, the timing is for your big letters and that you may want to use. I use this for lettering on there. I use manual digitize my underlay or do the complex fill as that varsity letter. You may want to change that varsity letter with the tatami. And then that. The margins is, this letter is created with the entering exit point, starting point, and everything. So your edge run, that means from here, for the margin, I'm going to go ahead and put my pole compensation back to normal, or actually none. And I'm going to go back underlay and take off the 1. So your margin means it's going to be about 0.25. I usually recommend some pole compensation on lettering. Use the default at least. And then some underlay. I like to start around 0.225. I think the default's 1.7, but maybe it's popping out the edges, so you may want to do about 3 from the edges or more. I'm going to exaggerate as 5. As you can see, my edge run just moved in from the wire frame, what makes the wire frame. So that black area, what makes it. Your pole compensation pulls the top part on there when you have it selected beyond those wire frames. Column width controls your underlay and your top coverage. So this top coverage, this is your underlay and your top coverage. So this, I have here, my margin right now is at 0.25. Let me grab it. 0.5, I'll put that back to 2. And maybe change it to a fleece, and I might have that final say and say, hey, I want to go under my pole compensation, and I want to move my underlay and my pole compensation. So let's say I'm going to go about 0.5. From the black line, when I have that selected, as soon as I turn that on, it's going to go top stitches 0.5 wider and move this underlay 0.5 to there. Boom. There you go. And then maybe a little extra combination of the two to try to go on a more thicker sweatshirt material. Or fleece, you may want to use what they call a double zigzag on there when you have that selected, or edge run and combination double zigzag. So that is the margin. The margins from the ends, the best way to do is turn off the ones in there and get this back to normal. Is from the top half of there to the bottom. I like to kind of probably show that as a center run, the best through there, and take off my lines and pole compensation. So we can see this. You see that run, well, the run stitch is probably going to be hard to show. Let's go to edge run. So let's go back to the edge run, because it always wants to go to the end usually anyways. You can see how that goes to the point through there. It goes back and forth zigzag. If I go through there and maybe change that to a 5, and this one is a 5, should have changed that, which I don't know why it didn't change that, but it should have. And not by edge, it's always by segments. I had that in there. Let's change that to a 1 just for the hell of it. Excuse me. I had that like, oh, did I say 2.5? Oh, you ain't going to see that by 2.5. I thought I said 0.5. See how that moved? I just moved that. Right there. See how close it is? And then the other side will be the number 3, your exit point. So goes to the top and entering. It's the way the person digitized it, really. So sometimes it's hard or tricky to determine this. So I'm going to say that one's supposedly a 3, and then you'll see that pose in there. So, and you could do negative numbers, believe me. I could do a negative and make that peeked out. See that? It just put spikes on my lettering. Cute little effect, eh? Just playing around with that. But that's how you control that, okay? Let's get back to that. So I recommend that, and then the bolder fonts use combination of the two. In E3, you can now change the angle. I don't recommend it much in lettering, but you can change that. They're supposed to turn this off on lettering because it can't get bad results. Maybe 45 on there, because some of these times when it takes these turns, it kind of makes it very long from the edges. It may pop out from the area. I don't recommend changing the edge angles on that. Through beta testing, I mentioned about making lap or cap corners on this part, and they said they were going to probably turn this off on the lettering, but they did not. So I would keep that at 90. Sometimes it will change it if you pull up old fonts and that, okay? So let's get back to where we were with the special. I'll go through my list. We got the letter width spacing. Like I said, you could actually grab that letter spacing, make it 20 on the lettering spacing. Actually, I got that as a fixed line. That's where I was. So bringing that back. Okay, fixed line, as I said, if I have more lettering, or if I change my setting as a smaller line, I have setting. I can change the spacing, the width, the size, spacing in width, the spacing in size. So I'm going to go ahead and change maybe the spacing and the width and change that. So when I do maybe add my middle name in there, or you might have a doctor or something like that, S-C-O-T-T, and I update that, it squeezed the lettering and kept the spacing up to date. Otherwise, I could have done different as the width or other effects. So you could play around with this and do more on that. That's how team names will take effect on what happens. So when you use a fixed line, of course, if I have a free line, that's how long the name would have been. And you try to put that on in a crest or in a team name template of some kind. Okay. So that was under the baseline, and left justify, we covered that. The word spacing, if you have each individual names. And we'll go through there. We got to update the individual. Whoops, let's get rid of that. We do have my name. Now we got the, okay, that was a word spacing, which I should have kept it. I'll just Control C and do the undo a couple times. Right there. Whoops, one more, I think it was. There. Delete that. And then I'll do Control V, get back to that later. So we got the word spacing. That means how much spacing. I usually like to go about 20 because sometimes I think the word spacing might be too small or too big on certain wording. I usually go about 20, 30, but this font seems to be pretty good, so I may put it back to default is 50. As you can see, it just finds the word spacing. And then you got the line spacing. Also, with the letter spacing, you could change the letter spacing. As I said, you may do 25. You can actually change your letter spacing through this little arrow. As watch the letter spacing here. You could move that little arrow, not the side arrow, but I just changed it to 12. So this arrow, not that arrow. That'll make the width of the lettering up here. This will do your letter spacing, 32. And then word spacing, as I said, same thing. And then line spacing brings this line. That means how much line spacing. I could change that value as line spacing. Once again, 75, make a little more line spacing. Or while I have that selected, just like in Corel, I can move the line spacing a lot less. Now it's down to 37. Auto spacing lettering, that's a little more of creating each individual lines. So I got, 4 characters, 5 characters, and more. That's where I may want to say if it has 4 characters, I may want to 0.8, and 5 characters, I may want it differently. So I'm going to just exaggerate this and say 0.5, 0.2, and so forth. And then I should have that effect. Is it on a fixed line, or should have took that effect? Whoops. But did it? Yeah, it does work. I just don't know why it didn't work on there. Did I have it, or it's not that noticeable? Wait a minute. I thought I changed that. 0.5. It's not taking my values. Oh, because my value top. Preset. And so forth. I can't go more than that, so I got to bring that in. I'm going to say 1 just for the heck of it. Now, I could go 0.5. So got to be more 0.5 up here. And then go the top value has to be bigger and so forth. So 0.45 and then 0.1 and then 0.6. And that should have done it. For some reason, 3, 4 letters. It should have done it. But what that does is like actually making a fixed line between there. And that might be my whole reason why things are not working, because I've been playing around with this. But we're going to skip over that. But that table is what that table is. Auto kerning right there. The sequence, so left to right, right to left. So I have this lettering right here. Is I do the shift redraw and play this right here. Oh, I got all the letters up there. Let me stop that. Didn't realize I had lettering up there. I'll just bring that down. Bring that up there and shift redraw. And it's sewing from left to right, as you can see. Speed it up. I'm going to stop it. Maybe I'm doing a hat. I need to sew from center out. And I'm going to go now center out, left to right, ending to the right. And stop that. I can do that same thing with this. lettering and say, hey, I want to make that center out because it's on a hat. And as I said, with that, I may want this line to end up on a G over here. So my last line setting here. So we'll start from the middle, probably that T, go over here, then go over there. And that's where I'm going to show you that little trick. So my starting point will probably be around here. So this one was going to go left and to the right. This one's going to end to the left. Go through there and shift redraw. How come? Oh, I'm at the starting. Whoops. Okay, right there. Play by recording. As you see, now it's going there, but it starts on the T. I want to start on the K, T, G. So that's, sometimes you want to play around with that. And of course, you got the same thing on there when you have this lettering. If it was multiple line, going from bottom up or from top to bottom and so forth. So what I want to do is uncheck that. Say it's basic lettering, maybe left to right. And I'm doing a hat. I get an answer on this. In E3, we are able to right-click and say break apart. In the past, when we broke apart lettering, we had individual objects. Now we got individual words. I could break apart again. For example, this is one line of text. I'm going to go put that as a free line. And I could say right-click and object property and break apart. And you will see, now I got individual letters. So what I could do is, I had it from center out, C, B, A, D, E. So it went from center out. So I broke apart that. But the reason why I made this back, it started on the T and would have went there. And I wouldn't want the word Scott to be individual letters. I actually want to take this lettering and this lettering. I'm going to right click in object properties and say, hey, I want to start from the right, go to the left. So now it goes right to left. And I want that word first and this one and then this one. Instead of drag and dropping, I like to use a resequence on here. So what I'm saying is, okay, I'm sewing a hat through here. And this is, let's say this fits on a hat. I know it's too wide. But I'm going to sew on a hat. Now I want to resequence all this. I broke this apart. I got this word, this word, this word. I got these individual words. If I break these more, then it will go back to like E2, as if I had individual objects break apart. As you see, now they're individual. Add and undo. And that gets back to my question earlier. How do you make one letter bolder than other? Well, now they're individual letter. I could add this and add pole compensation and bring this up and say 1, just for the heck of it. Wow. That's really bold. So hopefully that answered your question from before about making each individual, break it apart. Okay, so get back to my little thing. I got that letter. I want to show that object first. Maybe this one, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Resequence by selection. Watch it to my right. And there we go. Now I hit my shift record and see what happened there. So my T Scott going back and forth, left and right. And of course I hopefully have my lettering there going back and forth. I'm going upwards from the bill up on a hat. I just resequenced that quick on that. So little trick there. And then of course, once you get your design all done, you will also say design, auto start, auto end. Maintain means if you resize it, it always will take the whole object and maintain the center point. If you don't maintain, that means it will maintain where the last starting and ending position is. Also, if you want to digitize, return the start point or manual digitize, you can do that. And to line up on a hat or maybe digital print or screen printing, you may have a starting or ending point. I'm just going to maintain auto start from the middle where the center graphic or maybe top of the pocket being center. That's up to you. I like to say keep it in there. That way it's always in the middle of your hoop for beginners. So there. So as I said, as I travel through this design, start from the middle and then as I go through each segment and then go to the bottom on there. So that covers a little on the lettering. There is team names on there. Team names, I kind of hard to cover that. I think they have a topic on team names and team name advance. So I'm not going to get into the team names. I kind of mentioned if I had time, but it is 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here, and it's been about 1 hour now on there. So I'm going to go ahead and press done, and hopefully I covered a lot of the areas. I'm going to put my information up there and then bring this back down and answer some questions. So don't forget, visit my website or contact me, make any suggestions or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and press stop recording and open up the lines. And I want to thank you all for attending today's class on lettering for everybody. I try to cover different levels of what you can do, what you can't. You cannot break apart lettering on the lettering, just that ES21L. It will go into there because you don't have edit capability. So I apologize that for the anyone that has lettering. I don't think anyone does. I think everybody's at least on Embroidery Studio. There might be one person here on Deco. So thank you.